All right, we'll walk on holding by the Book of Leviticus Chapter 17. Again, want to walk on holding by the Book of Leviticus Chapter 17. We are in verse 14, still in verse 14. See if we actually finish today. You never know. The Torah says, "Ki nefesh kol basar damo benafshahu v'omer lebnei Yisrael dam kol basar lo techelu ki kol nefesh kol basar damo he ko oichlov yikaret." So here again, the Torah says that for the life of all flesh is the blood, right? The blood expiates for a soul, right? Really like atones for the soul. Therefore, I said unto the children of Israel, don't eat blood of any flesh, for the life of all flesh is in the blood. Whoever eats of it will be cut off. So again, we've been, speaking about this idea about the blood being in the soul. That is why Jews don't eat blood. I mean, it's very clear here that the Torah says, I said until the children of Israel don't eat blood, even though before it said a stranger seemingly also not allowed to eat blood, right? Stranger meaning a non-Jew, right? But seemingly, we explained that it's still permissible, right? Seemingly for a non-Jew to eat blood. Here it's very clear it's only forbidden for a Jew, and if a Jew eats it, he gets spiritually cut off. Now, obviously, there is repentance, so even if they're spiritually cut off, you could still have a portion of the world to come, right? There is repentance over here. But again, we've seen a number of times where the Torah says you're not allowed to eat blood. We've seen it in this chapter a few times. We'll see it in the book of Deuteronomy. I don't know, at some point I'll get there one day. Maybe when I'm about 92 at the rate we're going, but nonetheless, we should get there one day. So we spoke last week, in the last few weeks, of this Or Chaim HaKadosh that speaks about one of the great commentaries more than 100 years ago, right, where he spoke about basically the fact that we have a difference over here, where he mentioned the difference. What's the difference between different types of animals, right? You got a behemoth, which is a bigger type of animal, let's say like an ox or something like that, and you have a chaya, right? A chaya is a small animal, let's say a goat, or something like that. So he wanted to make a distinction between the two, and the influence that God has of keeping alive all animals, all plants, all trees. They're specifically speaking about animals. So basically, as we see at the end of the book of Job, right? If you read the last two chapters, at the end of the book of Job, God chastises Job, basically saying, are you there? When, let's say, a certain bird, once it's, the eggs are hatched, right? A lot of times that the bird will just, take this young, offspring, like, throw it off the tree or whatever, for whatever different reasons. And God saves them and makes sure they don't die. So God says to Job, well, you don't have any control of that. You don't do that. Right? And, talk about other things also where, certainly mankind has no control. So basically he tells Job to, keep his big mouth shut. You have no idea, how I run the world, what goes on, and all that. But the point is that God keeps these animals alive, or these birds alive, right? He takes care of them, and he makes sure that they are going to survive. Now, what happens when let's say an animal dies out, right? What happens when the animal dies out? So a simple explanation is God does not need that species around anymore. So therefore, he allows it to die out. Now, people could ask, okay, well, speaking about this for a second, what about dinosaurs, right? Dinosaurs seem to be, claim to be millions of years old, etc., right? So seemingly they also died out, right? Why did they die out? Well, before God created this world, what was God doing? Before, the commentaries tell us he was busy building and destroying other worlds, right? So they could have been part of another, who knows, another world that God did not need them, right? He put them in existence for whatever reason, right? And now he doesn't need them. So since he doesn't need them, what did he do? He got rid of them. Right? He doesn't need them to be in the world. So we mentioned also, it's kind of hard to understand, if God created them or created any being, right? Any plant, animal, whatever, and they seem to die out. So you could ask the question, if he's keeping them alive and sustaining them, right, as we're saying over here, so why kill them off? So the simple answer is he doesn't need them. Right? Seemingly he doesn't need them. We also learned about the great sea monsters that God created, right at the beginning of Genesis. And Rashi over there says that these great sea monsters, God killed off the male, salted the female, for the future. Right? It's going to be the Leviathan, right? This great sea monster, whatever it was, that God salted the female, because when Messiah comes, we're gonna have this big feast, right? We're gonna eat the Leviathan. Yeah, maybe we'll speak more about that. But in general, Rashi there says what happened. God saw that if they multiply, that they would destroy the world. Right? In other words, the animal's so big, it's a whole question exactly what this Leviathan was, right? But it was so big that if it would multiply, then then the world would be destroyed. The world would not be able to handle these animals in the world. Again, you can ask the question, if God knows that, God knows past, present, future, right? Because when Moses is going to go to the Jewish people, Moses says to God, what should I tell them? Who are you? Right? So he says, Eya, shir Eya. I'll be that which I will be. Meaning God's in control, past, present, future. God knows. God knows what's going on at all times. So again, you can ask the question, okay, if he knows they're going to multiply and destroy the world, then what would be the point of having them? Right? We'll ask a third question. God says, let there be light. Right? There was light. Very good. What kind of light are we talking about? Cannot be physical light. Why can't it be physical light? What simple answer? Because where does physical light come from? Right? Physical light comes from, right? As we understand, where does it come from? It comes from the sun. Very good. So if it comes from the sun, right? So it comes from the sun. That's very good. The only problem is the sun wasn't created till when? So day 4. Sun's not created to day 4. So what was its light? Yeah. Spend your whole life just learning beginning of Genesis, right? First chapter of Genesis, all, very much steeped in Kabbalah. But, so what do you do over here? So Rashi says, where does this light come from? Can't be physical light. Right? And God separated day and night. Okay, that's later, further later. But what's this light? What's this light source? So Rashi says that's the light for the righteous in the world to come. Now again, I would ask, well, the light source is coming day 4. Why does it create a source, a spiritual source of light that's only going to be used for the righteous in the world to come? Yeah, it's a good question. Legitimate question. By the way, anyone who's ever had an out-of-body experience, they say exactly what the Zohar, what Kabbalah says. What's the first thing that happens? They see their soul hover over the body. They see their life flash before their eyes. Right? That's what everybody says. They see their life flash before their eyes. Anything they've ever done in their life, like very quickly. And then they're drawn to this great light. What's that light? Seemingly, this is the light. It's a spiritual light. Right? Because again, you're talking a soul, not a person, not a body. So some sort of spiritual light that the soul, is drawn to. So there's a lot of questions, someone's asked me many years ago, If God is so great and God's so powerful, why didn't he need 7 days to create the world? God could have created it in 1 day. Could have created it in 2 days. Could have created it in half a day, right? So you say he needed more time. God's infinite, doesn't need more time. Everything was in existence at that point, and then when he said, okay, let there be light, boom. Right? In other words, he created something from nothing, not, and then left it there until he needed it. And then he put it into place. Very good. So there are things that God needs, or seemingly he needs for the world. And then when he doesn't need it, he gets rid of it. Could God sustain, all these different species? He could. So why do some fall through the cracks and die out? So you can explain, maybe sociologically, weather-wise, other things. Good. What's the real answer? What's the real answer? The real answer is because God didn't need them. So God takes them and gets rid of them. Doesn't need them. So here the Rechaim HaKadosh says, just by, again, way of review here, he says that through God's influence, these species are established and they continue to live. Now, didn't God program all these animals? Animals have one aspect of the soul, right? What's that one aspect of the soul? Well, we call the nefesh behemoth, right? The animalistic side. Now, everybody has that. Every Jew has it, every non-Jew has it, right? We're all creating God's image, very good. So an animal is programmed DNA. Animal has no free choice. Now, an animal could decide it wants to eat, it doesn't want to eat, this and that. That's not the free choice we're talking about. Free choice is God breathed in the spirit of life, the Torah says. When he breathed in the spirit of life, the Aramaic translation is he gave us a ruach memadalo. What does a ruach memadalo mean? Literally means the ability to speak, a spirit of speech. Well, don't animals also speak? I mean, if I was Dr. Doodle and I spoke with the animals, I'd understand what they say, right? The word great rabbis understood, let's say, the language of the birds. Okay. I don't know how many people understand the language of the birds today. Or what other animals say. There are animals, that see by some, monkeys or orangutans or, whatever that, they're taught sign language. Like you communicate with them sign language. Okay. But essentially, a ruach mamala means the ability not just to speak, it means to make decisions. Yeah, to reason. Animals don't reason. Animals do whatever their DNA tells them to do. Animals survive based on instinct, right? And sometimes, unfortunately, they get eaten up or other things, happen to them. Okay. So, but they're given instinct how to survive. Very interesting that they're born with that. Because, of course, that's the way it works, right? That's their DNA. Now, how could there be any atheists in the world? Right? I spoke last night in Pirkei Avos and Ethics of Our Fathers about Amalek, right? So you have to go back and watch it, but I'll tell you quickly that Amalek does not believe in the supernatural. So we have an obligation. The Shabbos before Purim, we read Parshas Zachor. That is Deuteronomy chapter 25, right? Verses 17 to 19, right? Spoke about that last night. But what did Amalek bring to the world? It's an obligation to wipe them out. We don't know who they are. Some say the Germans were Amalek, okay? We don't know who Amalek is today. Amalek, like all the other nations, got messed up and mixed up by Sancherib, so we don't know who's who. But essentially, there's an obligation to wipe them out. Torah obligation to wipe them out. God gave through what do you call it, to the prophets to tell Samuel the prophet to tell King Saul to wipe out Amalek. And he didn't do everything he said. He left, the best of the flocks alive so he could sacrifice them. And he left the king alive for whatever reason. Now, that king shacked up with somebody, had a child, right? That child right? Who's the offspring of that? Is Haman. But what did Amalek? So we can't wipe them out physically. We don't know who they are. Probably couldn't do it anyway, even if we did know who they are, right? Because you got the law of the land. You can't just go around killing people. If you knew 100% that you never get caught, maybe, but in general you wouldn't be able to do it, practically speaking. But even so, we don't know who they are. So even if we don't know who they are, there's a command to wipe them out, wipe out their memory. Or what do they bring to the world? The numeric value of Amalek and the word doubt is the same, right? The gematria is the same, right? Every letter has a every letter has a numerical equivalent, right? Aleph is 1, Beis is 2, Gimel is 3, Dalet is 4, right? You add up the letters of Amalek and the letters of Safek, of the word doubts, they're both the same. So what do they bring to the world? No belief in supernatural. Everything happens by chance. Now, if you look at the world in general, right? So I spoke a lot about that yesterday. But if you look at the world in general, you look at the human body, says the Chovos HaLevavos, right? It says, through the heart, Shar Bechina, gate of reflection. You look at the human body. Human body is a body of design. It's made by design. It goes through different parts of the body. And now it's not possible that it was random. Right? Even if you had all these mutations to make it in the body and the way the body works. So, only one part of the body everyone agrees we don't need, right? That's the foreskin, right? So God gave a command to the Jewish people, child's born, boy is born, 8 days, welcome to the covenant, right? You take off the foreskin. Everyone agrees the whole purpose of the foreskin is to take off. Now, there's a difference of opinion among doctors, every so many years. Some will say it's good against cancer to take it off. Some say it's not good against cancer. Whatever it is, everyone agrees that should be taken off. That's not needed. Okay. Now, we could look at the appendix. Only in the last number of years, doctors have figured out what actually the appendix is for, right, or what purpose it has. But everyone agrees if an appendix ruptures, right? Yeah, you're in the hospital, you take it out. That's dangerous, right? A person can die from that. So when it ruptures or whatever, God forbid, you take it out. Okay. But it doesn't mean that it's got no purpose just because, it took science a long time. It took doctors a long time to actually, pinpoint what exactly it's there for. There's nothing in the body superfluous. The other thing is obviously we know that if anything in the body goes wrong, anything goes wrong, doesn't have to be something major, throws off the entire body. Right? Usually the entire body. Sometimes more, sometimes less, whatever it is. So to look at the human body, the Book of Leviticus says, you want to see godliness? Look at the human body. Look at how the human body functions. Look at what the eye does. How the eye takes in colors, breaks it down. A million things going on in the eye. And how blood goes, capillaries going through the bloodstream. A little bit stoppage here and there, like in the brain, you have an aneurysm. Right? It's not a big thing here that happens. Goes outside of what it's doing, boom. Person either drops dead or comes out of it. Nothing necessarily in between. So I know when I was younger, I know 2 people had brain aneurysms. One person never woke up from it, and the other person survived it. So like, God wants to take you, do that. Just make the blood go a little bit off and boom. Right? Person has an aneurysm. Doesn't necessarily mean you're going to die from it. A lot of people do die from it. Okay. But to look at the world is what Abraham did. Abraham came on the scene at either the age of 3 or the age of 40, recognizes the world of design. Right? And he convinced a lot of people to recognize there's one God and there's a world of design. So it's pretty amazing just just pointing this out, pointing out really the obvious, right? And that is, I shouldn't say it's so obvious. I think it is, right? But, when you look at the world, when you look at, the world in general, and you look at nature, very hard to say, right? I should say impossible. Impossible to say it's random. All these things, how bees take nectar and, what they do with that and photosynthesis and other things. Just, of course, That's nature. Yeah, who put nature there? Who made it that way for all time? And that way forever. Nothing he says, you take a stalk, right? You take a grain, plant it in the ground, you get all these stalks. Why should that be? Or if you take, let's say, an orange seed, or you take an orange seed, you put it in the ground. So how many oranges should grow from that? What would I say? One seed, one orange. You want to tell me now, all things being equal, now you can have a tree, now you can have hundreds of oranges, or even better, take a peach pit, or any of these pits not edible, right? A person can't eat them. Certainly an animal will never eat them. And, impossible you break your teeth on it. You can try it. I wouldn't recommend it. But you break your teeth on it, okay. Now, what happens? Plant it in the ground. You put it in the ground. What does the ground do? Breaks it down. The ground breaks it down. So if you have enough sunlight, you have enough water, what's going to happen? It's going to grow into a tree. You're going to have all these peaches. Why should that be? One pit. One seed. One seed you can't do anything with in this world. Can't eat it, can't do anything with it. Put it in the ground breaks it down. You think, come on, did you ever learn geology? Don't you understand, what's in the, what's in the dirt and, what happens and how it breaks it down and this and that. It's beautiful. Yeah, it's beautiful. Why is it that way? Could you say? That's nature. That's the way it was made, really. So who made it that way? We say that's random? All these things are random? So that's what Amalek brought to the world. Stuff happens. Happens by chance. Right? Not only that, who do they fight against? They fight against the weakest people. They fight from the flank. They don't fight fair. Okay. It's not Amalek. Spoke about Amalek. Yeah, but they brought doubt to the world. They brought this idea there's no such thing as supernatural. So now you look at the world, yeah, unless you're a Bible thumper, unless people still, hold by the Bible, whatever, or religious that they believe in God, whatever that means, right? Whatever that means. So what do you have? What about everybody else? Now you have some people who will say, I'm an agnostic. What's an agnostic? Someone has a doubt whether there's a God or not. Okay. They're open to the possibility. But if someone comes along and says, no, I don't have any doubts. There is no God. Right? There is no God they're going to claim. But if you look at the world as Abraham did, how can it be? Abraham said there's a designer. There's a world of design. If there's a world of design de facto, what does that mean? Again, forget about oral law, anything else. What does that mean? That means there's a designer. Now, there's going to be a jump. Someone will say, okay, even if you can show there's design, it's not hard to show. Somebody can say, right, because we all have free will here. Someone can say, but who says it's, even if there is a designer, who says I have an obligation to serve it? But they won't necessarily say that. They might say that. But what would they say? They say, okay, you think even if there is a designer and you have to serve the designer, okay, maybe I'll give you that. But who says the way you serve it is right? Maybe the Christians are right. Maybe the Buddhists are right. Maybe the Muslims. Maybe, you get 80,000 different religions. Okay. So then you would have to show why these other so-called religions cannot be true. And the simple way to do that is just find a flaw in their book and whatever they claim. All you have to do is find one flaw, because if they say their God did this or said that or whatever, but you find it to be actually not true, then that knocks it out, right? You can say, well, doesn't the Rambam say? Doesn't the Rambam say anyone who goes against the prophecy of Moses, right? Doesn't the Torah say, Book of Deuteronomy, you cannot go against the prophecy of Moses. Can't go against it. God says himself, whatever Moses says, that you got to listen to. So by internal logic, again, we're not going to go to oral law. People say, oh, the rabbi says, the rabbi that. No. So you go to Jeremiah chapter 30. What does Jeremiah chapter 30 say? It's a new covenant. Beautiful. I got one question. I have a few questions, but I'll ask one question. If you can't go against the prophecy of Moses, right, and whatever Moses says, that's what we have to do. You can't add or subtract to what he says. How in the world, by definition, by logic, can there be a new covenant? By definition, that makes no sense. You cannot go against Moses. So now you tell me, okay, let's go back to the beginning of the chapter. Right? See, they're very good at cherry picking. They'll just take something totally out of context, which is, a lot of times what they do. And they'll say, oh, look, this must refer to JC. But I got a problem here. Got a few problems. Well, what's the main problem? The beginning of Jeremiah chapter 30, Jeremiah's chapter is chastising Jewish people. That's pretty much what he does almost throughout the entire book. Chastising the Jewish people. And he's telling them to reconnect to the original covenant of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. He wants them to reconnect. Oh, someone's going to say, if he wants them to reconnect, very good. Then why does he say new covenant? Yeah, so it's a good question. That's a good question, but not how they answer it. Because by definition, that can't be the answer. Because by definition, you can add or subtract the Torah. It's not going to be new. Can't be new. The what do you call it? The covenant has never been nullified. Now, they may claim, JC came, fulfilled it all, blah, 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 all this stuff, okay. But where do you see in the Torah itself, God said to the entire nation, you don't have to keep it anymore. You're not chosen anymore. Doesn't say that. They got plenty of convoluted things that they may claim or whatever. Okay. But to come and say, right, I'll get back to the point here, but to come and say that there's no order. Yeah, it's all random. I mean, it goes against so many things. But see, if you say that, you have one or two choices. And where the world came from, where the world come from. So you're going to say it's all random. Now, you could say that, there's a Big Bang. Okay. Where did the Big Bang come from? How did that all work out? They have to come up with some sort of answer. But if you look at the world as Abraham did, and he saw clear as day what is there, there's order. There's clear order. No one in their right mind is going to say, I'm sitting at this table right now, right? No one in their right mind is going to say it was made by itself. It was made randomly. Really? I don't know, like 4 legs, got a sturdy thing on top. Yeah. It was made by itself. It was made randomly. All these mutations, bam, made this beautiful table. Really? But again, what's your alternative? You got to come on to one or two things. Either you got to come on to evolution. And if you don't come on to evolution, the only other thing is what? Is the Torah. It's Genesis chapter 1. So you had great minds. You had great scientific minds. Yeah. You had Einstein. You had, what's his name? Stephen Hawking. And they both agreed, and other mathematicians agreed, we live in an expanding universe. So how's it continuing to expand? So science doesn't have an answer. Mathematics doesn't have an answer. So, they'll still say we're looking for the answer. Now, I'd be a little bit thick in the head, which I can be. I would sit them down if they were alive today. I'd say, Steve, I'd say, Steve, Al, let's have a discussion. You both agree, and these other great mathematicians and scientists, you all agree the world is expanding. Yes. Can you explain to me scientifically? I'm a simple person. Explain to me scientifically how the world can continue to expand from, seemingly from the beginning of time. Well, we're still looking into it. We don't have anything conclusive, but, we'll find something. We're, working on different things. We'll find it. Okay. Now, I would ask them, okay, you don't have scientific proof. No, but we'll find it. Okay. So you don't have any proof. Isn't there a possibility that actually the book of Genesis, the way the Bible tells the story, is true? Could be true? No, we'll never entertain that possibility. Again, I'm a little bit thick in the head. I would say, okay, Steve, Al, well, let's start this again. Do you have any concrete proof? See, Stephen Hawking, greatest physicist of our time, wrote a book, A Brief History in Time. And he concludes basically the world's expanding. If you read the end of the book, it seems like he says, well, forget about what I said. That is expanding. It's true. It's expanding. But I don't know how it's expanding. I don't know how it's expanding. You take what I say, chuck it in the garbage, but we're not going to say, I don't have any proof here, right? I mean, he does go and prove it, but he's saying, I don't know how it's continuing. So he says, throw my evidence out, but we're not going to say the creationists are right. We're not going to say that the Torah is right. Well, what other choice do you have? The only other choice is evolution. That's the only other choice. You can say the Big Bang. Okay, good. Where'd the Big Bang come from? How did that all happen? Well, the universe happened. Yeah. Now, interesting enough, plenty of scientists don't believe in evolution, but that's the only other, alternative. Just give one example. On the fifth day, God created animals. Right? Now, let's say on the fifth day, it's 5 billion years. Let's say. You take a monkey. A monkey, I remember, I take, a few semesters of a science. I took history and development of science. So history and development of science, just a nice way of saying evolution. Yeah, so professor the first day gets up, and he says, when you go to the zoo, you see a chimpanzee, you're looking at your cousin in the mirror. I'm like, I don't know, what are you talking about? I said, I don't know if they look like a chimp. Okay. But a chimpanzee, the difference in DNA between a monkey, chimpanzee, whatever, and a human is 1% difference. In other words, there's a 1% difference in DNA between a monkey and a human. Now, that's true. And let's say the fifth day God created animals. So on the fifth day, how long's the fifth day? So difference of opinion among scientists. But let's say average about 5-6 billion years. Let's say. Now, if you have a mutation every second for 1 billion years, it's a long time. Mathematically impossible, according to physics, mathematically impossible for a monkey to turn into a human. That's 1% difference DNA. So now you want to tell me a paramecium turns into a hydrate, or turns into a, creepy crawly thing, or turns into a bigger thing, and then eventually turns into a human? You don't have that much time in history, even if you say it's 50 billion years old. There's not enough time, mathematically. So yeah, it's flawed. I don't have to prove it's flawed. It's flawed. A lot of scientists believe it's flawed. So you have no other choice. What other choice except that creation might be true? See, but these scientists and mathematicians will never entertain that possibility. Cognitive dissonance. Why not? Because they have to take all the formulas, everything they know, and they have to say we don't have an answer. They agree it's an expanding universe. Good. But they don't have an answer how it is continuing to be expanding. So again, I would tell them, it's one of two choices. You don't have anything according to science. If you don't have anything according to science, either you have to tell me, which they would say, we'll find it, right? And if they don't find it, then what do you have to come on to? Evolution. I don't know, they'd be so happy coming on to evolution. Okay, but they're not going to come to the Bible. They're not going to come to creationism because they're obligations. If you believe there's a God that's keeping everything together, and he's keeping everything moving along, and he's in charge of nature, what does that do? What that does is obligates me to keep what he says. So in the last 30 years, more than 30 years, I've met one intellectually honest person. One. Everyone else got all their crazy ideas. They think this, they think that. Okay. Based on nothing. But I met one intellectually honest person. This intellectually honest person was a Jew married to a non-Jew. And the person says, listen, if I look into the Torah and I find out it's true, that means for them, that means that they have to do what the Torah says. Now, most people don't care, but this person's intellectually honest. They said if I find out it's true, I'd have to keep it. So therefore, I'm not going to look into it. I'm not interested in looking into it because if I find out it's true, I'm not going to change, and that wouldn't be right. Because now I've just been proven wrong. So they're saying it very well could be true. But what are they actually saying? I'm going to stick my head in the sand. I'm not going to look. I'm not interested because if that's the case, this person wasn't that old at that time. This person was probably 30, 31. Maybe. Whatever, still married to a non-Jew, but guess what? If they find out the Torah is true, they have to change. They can't be married to a non-Jew. Unless that person's going to end up converting. Okay. So if they're going to convert for the right reason, this and that, good. But if they ain't going to convert, they lose. Yeah, you can't keep the Torah and be with a non-Jew. Right? Two don't mix. So you gotta get divorced. That's it. There's nothing to do. And there's nothing to do. But again, in the last 30 years, one person. I've heard all kinds of different theories about this, about that, about the other thing. They don't add up they all add up to zero. This person, at least they were honest. If I have to change, I'm not going to do it. Now, comes on the Rechaim HaKadosh here, and he says that the whole reason these animals, small animals, bigger animals, whatever it is, are in existence and are established, meaning they continue generation after generation, is only from God's influence. Meaning, if it wouldn't be for God's influence, we go back to Genesis chapter 1, verse 2, back to the original chaos, right? Back at that Led Zeppelin album. Anyone know what I'm talking about? Yeah, chaos. To be better, you wouldn't have to listen to me. The world goes back to nothingness. So we say every day in the Shema, the paragraph before the Shema, in the morning, we say that God is Machadesh Bechol Yom Tamid. God renews creation every day. Present tense. The word Machadesh means it's doing, active. Not past. Not future. Meaning, God every single day renews creation. If God for a split second sneezed, took his mind off the world, boom. The world goes back to this chaos. Every second of every day, God's in charge, keeping everything together. Why in the world should the earth stay in its axis the way it is? Why, if the earth would be a drop closer to the sun, we'd all be incinerated. Yeah. If the world was a little bit further, if the earth was a little bit further back, right, we'd be like Pluto, that frozen tundra, no offense. Pluto got demoted as a planet. Okay. we'd never be able to survive. So you tell me, don't show anything about science. The Earth turns on its axis, very good, goes around the sun, beautiful. But why does it stay that way? Why doesn't it get too close or too far away? They said, don't you understand? They never learned about gravitational pull. Right? So that's one of those my favorite thing I learned. But you're right. It's gravitational pull. Yeah. The Earth's not going to go out of it. It's pretty miraculous. Just not going to happen. It's going to stay in the same thing. All that has to do is go, drop further to the sun. That's it. We're toast. No pun intended. We'd be toasted here. But instead, that gravitational pull is so strong, it'll never leave it. That's pretty amazing. I mean, the Earth's pretty big. As big as some other planets, okay. But the fact it stays on its axis, it doesn't go too far forward or too far backwards or upside down or who knows what, and it stays in the same axis, come on, that's gravitational pull. Well, it's pretty amazing that the whole system's set up that way. And it's been that way forever. Scientists at the beginning made a big mistake. They thought, the sun goes around the moon, the sun goes around the Earth. Comes on, Copernicus. You guys got it wrong. You think the sun's going around the Earth? The Earth's going around the sun. Yeah. So here, the Or Chaim HaKadosh is telling you all these things. He's talking about animals. But you can apply it to anything. Plants. Another thing, you talk about the sun and the miracles of the sun. Why does the sun ever burn out? If the sun would burn out, life would never be sustained. Impossible. So even according to science, you want to say the world's 1 billion years old, let's say, billions of years, 15 billion years old, 20 billion years old, whatever it is, it's billions of years old, beautiful. The sun is never burnt out. Won't you think at some point, maybe, it's going to blow itself up? It's just so hot, it's such a, So it says Or Chaim HaKadosh over here, God has his influence, and he establishes all these things, animals, and everything. He prepares it in this world, in order for it to be established, in order for its kind to continue. So as we said, if God doesn't want it to continue, you say, so if God wants all these things to continue, you see, species disappeared. Very good. Why did they disappear? Why in the world did they disappear? What's the simple answer? God didn't need them. If he needed them, they wouldn't disappear. Now, you have animals that are almost extinct, right? Person goes to, you go to different zoos, you'll see sometimes they'll have these, these animals that, that there aren't so many of them around. They've died out, they've been killed, whatever it is, but they're still here. They haven't totally died out. I mean, they might be on life support. Maybe they only have, a few hundred left in the world or even less. They could die out. Okay. But that's not a contradiction. Because even if they would die out, he's saying that God's influence keeps them alive. Right? Keeps their species alive, let's say better. So very good. So if it keeps their species alive, what happens if it doesn't give that influence to that species? Guess what? Repeat after me. Iskadav, Iskadav. Mourner's prayer. It's over. They won't survive. They won't survive. So we spoke. So Abraham comes on the scene, and he sees this whole world of design. So it's pretty incredulous. It's not that hard you've been brainwashed, thank God. You've been brainwashed. Who they try to convince you, this, that, and the other thing. Think about it. Look at the miracles of the human body. Look at nature. Look at photosynthesis. Look at all these things. You think they happen random? Right? It's like taking an eyedropper, right? Or, an ink dropper, right? Yeah, that's how the world came about. You drop the ink and it, every time you drop it, it spills and it goes like all over. Makes this whole picture. Very good. That's how you want to explain how the world came in? It's not a world of design. It's all random. That's what Amalek brought to the world. That's exactly what they brought to the world. No such thing as supernatural stuff happens. Comes on the Or Chaim HaKadosh, and we said, so where does all the power in the world come from? We're going to say it comes from God. Very good. What do they use to keep it all together? God's heavenly throne, Kisei HaKavod. The Rav Chaim of Volozhin, famous student of the Vilna Gaon. Rav Chaim of Volozhin says, in Nefesh Chaim, the very beginning, so the person thinks their actions don't matter. You see, right, in the 3rd or 4th chapter, he speaks it out. He says it right at the beginning, but it's talking about a few other things. But what does he get to? He says, oh, you don't think your actions matter? What happened to Adam and Eve? Adam and Eve ate from the tree, whatever that tree was. That brought death to the world. Oh, see? Repercussions for your actions. Never should have been death, according to us. According to the Jewish people, Adam's only given one command. That command was, whatever you do, don't eat from the tree. Had he done what he was supposed to do, he would have gone into the Garden of Eden, would have gone into paradise. That's the end of the world. He listened to what God said. That's it. We're finished. The world gets destroyed. Don't need the world anymore. That's not what happened. Right? But what happened over here? What was this tree of knowledge? So in the tree of knowledge, says Rav Chaim of Volozhin, just to get a picture here. He says, what is the tree of knowledge? The tree of knowledge is all the spiritual worlds together in that tree. Whatever that means. Now, there are 10 spiritual worlds. We'll make it very simple. 10 spiritual worlds. So he says, each spiritual world gets strengthened by the one above it. And by the one above that. And by the one above that. Very good. But where do they get solidified? Where's their strength? Where does it come from? What's the top of the chain? The spiritual chain. You say God, very good. But what's he using? He's using the Kisei HaKavod. He's using his heavenly throne. And what's underneath, we understand, what's underneath the heavenly throne? All the souls. Where God sends a soul into a body. And that soul, which is not going to remember once it goes into the body, right? But that soul has a purpose. And it goes in the body. Right? Now, it may not remember what it's supposed to be doing. So how do you know what potential is, what we're supposed to be doing? Maybe the soul comes back in order to be fixed up, right? Reincarnation, a Jewish concept. I remember once I was interviewing for a rabbinic job somewhere in the States. I spoke at a Jewish community center, and I spoke about reincarnation. Yeah. So really, I spoke for like 40, 50 minutes about, the evil inclination versus the good inclination. Then for like 10 minutes, I spoke about reincarnation. But anyway, I was introduced, I got up to speak, and I said, there are 20, 25 people there. So I said, I just want everyone to know that reincarnation, I think, nice, interesting, juicy topic. So I said, I just want everyone to know that reincarnation is a Jewish concept, right? And 3 people fainted. Like, really? So, it's really a Jewish thing. So a soul can come back, right? If it gets judged and given an opportunity to come back and fix up whatever it's supposed to fix up. So it's got an opportunity to do that. The only problem is we don't know what that is. In other words, instead of getting fixed up upstairs, right? If a person does something wrong, you got to get punished. That's what we say in the Shema, 2nd paragraph of the Shema. There's reward and punishment. You do what you're supposed to do, good. You don't do what you're supposed to do, there's payback. Right? There's payback. Now, it could be in this world, it could be in the next world. So it could be God gives you an opportunity to come back in order to fix up whatever you messed up in this world. Because really, we have to give our soul back to God the way he gave it to us. Now, seemingly, that's impossible. King Solomon says that there's no one, he says, either in Ecclesiastes or Proverbs, I think he says in Proverbs, that there's no one been in this world, could be wrong, could be Ecclesiastes, don't hold me to that, but he says there's no one ever been in this world that hasn't sinned. Now, the Gemara says there are a handful of people in the world who died only because of the sin of Adam and Eve. You have a handful of people, but basically everyone else has sinned at some level. At some level. Now, when a person sins, depending what they did and how they did it, it's a rebellion against God. That's what it is. Now, you can tell me, someone grew up as a potato farmer in Idaho. No offense, anyone's a potato farmer grew up in Idaho. Someone who grew up knowing nothing about Torah mitzvahs, yeah, they don't get a free pass. So what a lot of things they've done, they're going to get judged whether they did it by accident. Certain things, though, again, desecration of Shabbos, severe punishment. Adultery, severe punishment. Homosexuality, severe punishment. Yeah, you don't get a free pass. So there's going to be payback. Now, it could be that a person has an opportunity to come back, fix up their soul. So someone who's very much steeped in Kabbalah once explained to me, probably come back 3 times, maybe 4 times maximum. This is probably our last time around. Now, someone's going to say, how do I know what my potential is? Or let's say better, how do I know what to fix up? How do I know what I'm doing there to fix? And what's the answer? We don't know. Right? We don't know for sure. We probably didn't even know by accident. Yeah. Very hard to know. But someone once explained to me, I'm not going to say this written in stone, right? But someone once explained, think about something in your life that you would rather slit your eyeballs and do with glass. Yeah. No, I don't want to be too graphic here, right? It's something that you would never, ever, ever want to do. It's too painful to do. It's too hard to do. See, if it's so easy to do, there's no test. We're in this world to be tested. Right? Now, I get this question all the time. What's the measure for measure? We believe, all our tests and punishment really is measure for measure. We do something wrong, there's measure for measure, but we don't always understand that. Most times we don't understand. Right? I get this question all the time, but I want to know what the measure for measure is. Okay, so let me ask. Moshe Rabbeinu says to God, I want to see you face to face. Says in the book of Exodus, I want to see you face to face. What does God say? No one can see me. No one can see my face and live. You can only see me from behind. What does from behind mean? It means you can only see me in hindsight. Can't see me face to face. That means you can't understand what you're going through pretty much because you're just not in the know. You might think it's because of this. You might think it's because of that. Or it might be something else. Right? Moses sees a child being used as mortar for bricks in Egypt. And he wants to save the child. God says, leave the child. Moses says, but I want to save the child. So painful to see this child being used as, used for mortar. Keep the bricks together. Child's being killed. God says, you don't get it, but okay, do it. So they'll allow you to do it. He saves the child. That child later grows up to be one of the most wicked kings in the history of Jewish people. Jewish king. Moses says, save the child. God says, not a good idea. Moses says, I want to do it anyway. God says, okay. Pay the price. We don't, many things we don't see. And we don't understand. Right? Not a cop-out. We just don't see the bigger picture. Right? In many ways. But people will say, I want to know the measure for measure. Now, I would say that's the ultimate in chutzpah to say that. Why? I understand why people would want to understand. But why do I say it's the ultimate in chutzpah? Moshe Rabbeinu was the greatest of all people. He came to the 48th level of understanding, almost perfect understanding in this world, the 49 levels. He came to the 48th level. If God tells Moses himself, there's no way you're going to see my face and live. Nobody can see my face and live. So, 3,500 years later, 3,000 years later, you want to say, well, I'm on par with Moshe Rabbeinu. I want to know. I think that's kind of chutzpah thing to say such a thing. I understand why somebody would want to know. That I understand. But if Moses himself will never know, and God tells the Jewish people there's no one who will ever see that, then no one's ever going to know. But I would take it one step further. Let's say God in all his wisdom said, you know what? You want to know? You want to know what you're going through and why you're going through it? So God said, okay, I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you right now, not later, not in the next world. I'll show you right now. And God shows you a vision. He says, remember you did this? Could have been 2 weeks ago, could have been a month ago, could have been 3 years ago. God says, I waited for you to repent. I waited for this. I waited for that. You didn't repent. I'm hitting you now because of this. Now, I would ask the question. If somebody would find out, if they would find out exactly what they're going through and why, is that going to make the person much happier? They'll say, well, at least I knew, right? It's kind of like, playing Sudoku or doing a crossword puzzle and you get stuck, right? What do most people do? Or I shouldn't say most people. What do some people do? Some people like the challenge. So they'll come back to it, they'll get something to eat, they'll think about it more, maybe they'll look something up, I don't know. But they won't give up. What will other people do? I don't know what the stats are, so it doesn't really matter. But what will other people do? They'll look at the back. They don't want to be stuck. They want the answer. Right? But that's not such a challenge. Because you sat there for 30 seconds, you don't want to think about it some more. And you couldn't get around the answer with other things. So you're stuck. If you're up to the challenge, good. That's the whole point. But some people certainly look at the answer. So that's not really such a challenge. But here, I'm not so sure that if God would reveal himself or, through an angel or whatever and say, this is the reason you had to go through this, that, and the other thing. I'm not so convinced someone's going to be so ecstatic that now they know the reason. Maybe some people say, okay, I'm glad I know what happened. I'm glad I understand. Could be they'll think they're so stupid because they did this, that, and these are the repercussions, and this is what happened, and this is the fallout. I don't know. Right? Some people would say, I'd be very happy to know why. I'd be very happy to understand. Now, things are not as what they seem to be. Because God can say, oh, remember you did this? Well, this was the repercussion, and this was what happened, and this, and you see, it's like the Matrix. A lot more complex than what we see. Now, someone's going to say, what does that have to do with anything over here? Right? Because the Or HaChaim HaKadosh says, he says, God's keeping everything around, right? He's keeping these animals around, right? Through his influence. And there are a lot of different levels. There are a number of different levels. He says there are 4 levels. What are the 4 levels? You got fire, wind, water, dirt. Right? These are 4 fundamental elements in the world. So you got physical things. You got these physical things. But they also correspond, he says, to things that are spiritual. And it's not a coincidence. By the way, we mentioned God's heavenly throne. What's on God's heavenly throne? What's under God's heavenly throne? Let's say better. Carrying the throne. You got the face of a person. You got the face of a eagle, a lion, and an ox. And then corresponds 4 angels, right? We spoke about a little bit. But what's the point here? What's the point I want to get to? The point here is, he says, what about the soul? Where does the soul come from? Soul comes from underneath God's heavenly throne. That's where all the souls are. Very good. So he says, what did God create the soul from? The soul we don't see, right? Everyone's got, person will ask, well, where's the soul? You're going to point right here, right? It's inside. It's making me go like this and do this, because if the soul wasn't there, you wouldn't be able to do anything, right? Be like silly putty, just sitting there, right? You'd be dead, essentially, right? Where does the soul come from, he says? The soul comes from this unbelievable light that's part of God himself. Now, you have to understand, what did God do? God breathed in the spirit of life. He gave every human being life. That means every single being, Jew or non-Jew, right, has the soul. Now, it might be different aspects of the soul for a non-Jew than a Jew, doesn't matter. God breathed in the spirit of life. He put the soul in the body. The soul comes from part of God himself, which is a little bit hard to explain. This would be Kabbalah 102a. And that is, if God is everywhere and God is infinite, how can he place a spark of him in everybody? Yeah, someone asks me this question a lot. I get the question a lot. It's hard to understand, in physical terms. Because God you can't put in a box. Even though in Exodus chapter 25, verse 8, right, God says, I want to dwell amongst the Jewish people. Yeah, I want to dwell amongst you. How do you put God in a box, in the Mishkan, the tabernacle, whatever you want to call it? Even in Talmud, the tabernacle is like 4 football fields long. Okay. But God's infinite. You can't put him in a box. No possible way to put him in a box. Okay, so, you got to explain that Kabbalistically. But the point is, if God is everywhere at all times, how can that spark of him be in every person different thing? Very, very hard to understand, right? Simply it's hard to understand. But he's telling you that the soul comes from the upper echelons, right? In spiritual terms, which is part of God himself. There are different levels. There are different levels. But if God puts a spark in you, aren't you all the same? No. Sometimes God will put a bigger spark of him inside a person. You take somebody, let's say, like the Vilna Gaon, Elijah Vilna, more than 270, 280 years ago. Yeah, if he would have been born in the generation of Rashi, he would have been just as great. Because his soul, he had a much bigger soul than other people. So he was able to do a lot more. But they say, it's one thing if a person knows, let's say, the entire Torah, Talmud, everything, going in one direction, right? Going in the normal direction. They say about the Vilna Gaon, he can spit it backwards. He can tell you what it all said backwards. It's a much different thing. Imagine a person came in front of him, learned a certain tractate or whatever, right? So Vilna Gaon, could ask, okay, in this entire tractate, let's say there are, 70 pages. Of all these 70 pages, how many disagreements were there between Abaye and Rava? Or Rav Ashi? And where does he appear here or there? He could tell you that information like that. There are different ways of learning, different levels. Yeah, you can speak about information. Someone who knows the tractate very well, can tell you what it says on this page, on that page, and commentaries saying this, that, very good. Right? Can you tell me how many words are on the page? Standard page. Can you tell me how many different versions Rashi says? And different Rashi says. How many disagreements were there between these two rabbis? Were there disagreements? And that's a whole different thing. Yeah, that's an entire different way of knowing and understanding, right? But wasn't he given a spark? He was also given a spark. So he used that spark for all, to become as great as he was. But his soul was a different soul. Meaning, he had the ability to accomplish a lot more maybe than other people. Nonetheless, comes from God himself, different levels. Yeah. But he says, and the point I wanted to get to is that the heavenly influence plays a major role. Major role in the world. Now, we don't necessarily see it. We don't necessarily fathom it. Yeah? But a lot of things that we do, the Ramchal says in Derech Hashem, right, in the way of God, the Ramchal says like this. The Ramchal says that when a person does something, whether it's good or bad, God takes it at that split second. He looks at it, judges it, right? Where you were holding, what your intention was. Then he takes it upstairs, looks at it, evaluates it, puts it back in this world, and all the repercussions at the same time. Now, that's also kind of hard to understand. See, a person just thinks, okay, you make a blessing, you ate an apple, you did this, you did that, whether you're Jew or not. Yeah, whatever it is. It's okay, I did it. Whatever the action is. Could be good, could be bad. The repercussions could be unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. But we don't know how it all works out. We don't know as well that there are other factors involved. Right? I get this question all the time. People say, well, there are certain segulas, certain omens that a person will do, for, let's say, for the sake of livelihood, right? One of them is to say, Parshas Haman, right? It speaks about in Parshas Beshalach, talks about the manna that fell, right? Say that every day. It's supposed to be good for parnosa, for livelihood. Or to say Perek Shira, you got 6 chapters, right? Talk about all these different animals and different verses, etc. It's all supposed to be good for that and good for find a marriage partner. A lot of different things. Now, people think that these things are like invincible. In other words, if you start doing it, life's going to change. Going to find a marriage partner, livelihood's going to be great, all these things. A person said it for 40 days, saying it consistently, is definitely something, right? A lot of other things going on, very good. But some people will think that, okay, I did this, and the results, I didn't get the results. I didn't get the results that I want. Right? The Rebbe say, okay, do it again. Now, if it's supposed to be something that, it's like, quote unquote, a magic formula. If it's a magic formula, why doesn't it work? Sometimes. Or why does it take longer? You got to remember, there are other things going on. God could be squeezing you for any number of reasons. And it doesn't matter what you do, he's going to squeeze you. Right? Until he decides not to. These things can't hurt. There's no question. Also work on our emunah and our faith and belief in God. Very good. Yeah. But at the same time, it's not a guarantee. I heard a great rabbi once say before Yom Kippur, people look to do this to get a good ruling, in heaven, and people look to do that. He says, I got a bona fide thing that according to everybody's good. Yeah? Tshuva. Repentance. People will go to, this great rabbi's gravesite, to pray, can't pray at him, right? Because that'd be idolatry. But, people go to, different grave sites, different things, this, that. Okay, through their merit, they could help. Yeah, could be. What if it doesn't go? Here's the guarantee. What if it doesn't go? What's the point? The God wants to squeeze you for whatever reason. So the whole thing over here, again, not to get caught up, in the heavenly throne, and all that. The point is there's heavenly influence going on all the time. We don't necessarily see it. We don't necessarily fathom it, but keep in mind, I would think this would, keep us on the straight and narrow path. Keep in mind, he's telling you how powerful the soul is. He's telling you God breathes in the spirit of life. The soul comes from a very holy place. So how is it possible in general, right? It's a very simple answer, but how is it possible in general for a person to mess up that soul in this world? Because you're going to tell me, well, the soul should be so powerful it should destroy the body, but the soul gets trapped. Okay. The soul can never shine the way it needs to unless it's in the spiritual world. But how does the soul shine, quote unquote, in this world? It really can't in spiritual terms. When a person does the right thing. When a person goes in the right path according to Torah mitzvahs. When you go in the wrong path, you do the wrong thing. Yeah, depending on the level and why you did it and this and that, you make a spiritual stench. But you could ask, what was my question? My question would be, if that's how powerful the soul is, and it comes from a holy place, how in the world can we waste time in this world doing stupid things and who knows what, and not strengthen the soul the way it needs to, and get caught up in all these things and get distracted? Because the soul comes from an unbelievably holy place. And we have an obligation to return the soul as it came. which is going to be hard to do. Unless there's a lot of repentance and, and all that. It's going to be very, very hard to do because we're sullied with sin. Now, if you didn't have repentance, then there'd be no chance. But we're sullied with sin. So if we're sullied with sin, we're never going to return the soul the way it should be. They're going to say, game over, so why bother? Because you have an obligation to draw close to God, Jew or non-Jew. That's our obligation in this world. And God gave us a book manufactured himself. It's called the Torah. He gave us the ability to do it, to tap in. Non-Jews don't tap in the same way. Okay. But you see, if it comes from such a holy place, and we have such obligations, obviously Jews have more obligations, okay. But we have such unbelievable obligations. I don't know where we get caught up in this stuff. All this stuff doesn't matter, right? People will say, come on. I'm being influenced. People tell me to be normal. People say, come on, you got to believe in, JC, or why are you spending so much time studying? You're studying to strengthen the soul. You want to give the soul back the way it came. So you tell these people, go take a long walk, off a short pier. This is what I'm doing. I need to solidify my soul. I need to make it stronger. I don't need to get distracted in this world. I need to do what God wants me to do. Beautiful. And anything short of that, you're sullying the soul. Different level. Depends where the person's holding. Okay. Well, think about what he's saying over here. God says, I gave you this holy soul. I gave it part of me. And now you're going to sit there and waste it in this world? I gave you an opportunity to be in this world, to enjoy my world. But you have to know how to enjoy it. You have to know how to tap in. And if you don't tap in the right way, you're in serious trouble. God put the soul in a body for a reason. The Torah says that, God took us out of Egypt. He took us out of Egypt to distinguish us from the non-Jews. And he also distinguishes us by what we eat, by what Jews eat. So he doesn't apply to non-Jews. We mentioned many times, by non-Jews, no obligation here. Because the Kli Yakar says in Leviticus Chapter 11, says the Kli Yakar, you don't have to keep kosher, talking about kosher animals. Non-Jews don't have to keep kosher. Why? Because they eat all kinds of creepy, crawly things that doesn't change them, does not affect them. By Jews, it does, even if science hasn't proven it. So if that is the case, the non-Jews are not affected by what they eat, except for eating the bats and wuhan, however that works. It doesn't affect them, says the Kli Yakar over there. If it doesn't affect them, why would non-Jews do it? Say, but I want to eat clean animal. I spoke about this last week. Want to eat clean animals. Makes me better. That has no effect. It's like taking a placebo. Like taking a sugar pill. Okay. You want to take a sugar pill? You want to think it affects you, right? Same case, a woman wears this talus with a broken off tzitzis. It's like, wow, I found so much holiness. So it says, Rav Yoshe Ben Soloveitchik, I don't know what you found, but it wasn't any holiness. What do you mean? He gave me this talus. It's, I ripped off one of the strings to make it invalid. It's not a talus. It's like an oversized, it's like an oversized towel with fringes. Oh, but what about all the Kedusha? What about all the holiness? I don't know. Psychosomatic. You felt something. You might have felt it deep within. Okay. You might have felt something, but I can guarantee you it wasn't the power of the mitzvah. Right? So say, how do you know? How does Rav Yoshe Ber know that it's not the power of the mitzvah? Because there's no mitzvah here. Person's wearing an oversized towel. It's not a towel. It's invalid. Oh, maybe I don't have to listen to the rabbi. So why are you wearing the towels? Right? Four-cornered string, four-cornered garment. You got to put on fringes. Very good. But if you don't put on the fringes the right way, is it a talus? It's not a talus. You got fringes there. Very good. So what? It's invalid. If it's invalid, I can't even wear it on Shabbos if there's no Eruv. Because I can't carry it. It's not considered a piece of clothing. Right? It's not a piece of clothing. It's invalid. But I hear this all the time. I'm so much more Jewish than most people, and I feel it in my heart. That's beautiful. And your soul was probably at Mount Sinai. Okay. Well, I'll ask you a fundamental question. You feel so Jewish. Did you go to the mikveh? No. Did you go in front of 3 rabbis? No. But I'm more Jewish than anyone else. I don't care what anyone says. Okay. But if someone's born a Jew, it's different. Someone had a proper conversion, that's different. People don't want to hear that. It's not politically correct to say. But everyone knows it's not politically correct anyway. But that's the truth. At any point in this person's life, until they go through that, they can eat, trade, they do, they keep the Noahide laws. That's it. Plenty of things they're not going to do as a Jew because they're not Jewish. What I feel doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. I got to put into action. But I got to put in action the right way. Not a free-for-all. Not a 5-year option to renew. Not I feel like doing it, I don't feel like doing it. Forget about it. You got to do what the Torah says. The Torah says you got to listen to the Kohen in every generation. Who's the Kohen in every generation? You got to listen to what the rabbis say. Oh, I don't want to listen to the rabbis. Okay, so do what you want. That's Torah made up my own mind. Okay. But think about it. God gives you the spark of himself. So what do you think? He distinguished the Jewish people. He took them out of Egypt, right? Says the Torah, I distinguished you from what you're allowed to eat, not allowed to eat. So God's going to say, if I were playing God, put on my funny George Burns glass, my funny mustache, what would I say? You took me out to eat tripe, to eat shrimp? Really? That's what you took me out for? That's the whole purpose? He gave you part of himself and you sully up the soul. You make the soul disgusting in his eyes. He's saying God created from heavenly light, whatever that is, part of himself. And this is what he uses for? Oh, I have a different interpretation. Okay. Yeah. That type of Judaism will never survive. It'll never survive. Kaufman's law is either you do it right or you don't bother. Because then you make it into a whole mishmash. Feel like doing it, don't feel like doing it. Feels good, it doesn't feel good. So what? This is stuff you got to keep regardless. If you want to be a Jew, you don't want to be a Jew, okay, so you have less things to keep. But there are plenty of things to learn, plenty of things to know how to do, and how to stay in God's good graces by, being moral, even if certain things don't apply. Could be moral imperatives, but you got that spark in yourself, so how could you give that spark back when it's all sullied, when it's all dirty, when you feel I can do what I want, I don't have to. It's order. As Abraham said, there's order. And everything comes from above. Doesn't mean we don't have free will. We do have free will. No one's forcing us to do anything. We have free will. Free will might be limited, okay. But think before you do something. Think about how it can affect the soul. How it can affect others. Right? It's a good thing to keep us in check a little bit. Yeah? Think about what it has the power to do. Because we don't see the repercussions. Right? Some things we do, other things we don't. But, spiritual repercussions. Right? Just, anyone who's, God forbid, with somebody that's not allowed to be with, they have a child. Right? That child's called the bastard child, the mamzer. Right? There are spiritual ramifications, such an action. You can only marry certain people. See, it's easy to understand. A person puts their hand over fire, you burn your hands. A woman, God forbid, who smokes crack while she's pregnant, the kid comes out deformed. Again, it's not the kid's fault. It's not punishment, right? But there are repercussions. There are physical repercussions, spiritual repercussions. Oh, come on. It's all make-believe, this and that. Torah is very complex. Extremely complex. You can have a lot of people seriously messed up in spiritual terms because they don't care. And they cause a lot of problems. I'll give one example. Kids learn, when they're younger, they learn, or, they see from weddings. What do they see? They see a guy gives the girl a ring, right? Gives a ring and he says, Harayat mikudesheli, b'tabazu kedas Moshe Yisrael. Right? Consecrates her and he says, with this ring, right? You're consecrated to me according to the laws of Moses and the Jewish people. So the kids want to have fun with that, So, a kid underage, let's say, gives the roses, they're at Mikudeshuli, and let's say there are two people watching. You guys say, okay, big deal, they're kids. Oh, it's a problem though. The problem, he says, this boy says the magic formula, get other people watching. Very well, they're gonna have to give her a bill of divorce. Could be, it's a good kedushin, it's good sanctification. So now they're only playing around. Playing around, it's not so simple. There are a lot of things like this that very easy to mess up things. And the repercussions can be catastrophic. Catastrophic. So, bottom line over here, there's a lot of questions here, but bottom line is that there are a lot of things that we see that we don't fathom. We don't fathom at all. But what we do understand and can understand is we're living in a world of design. And through that world of design, there's a designer. And there's an obligation to serve that designer. But think about what the Orach Chaim HaKadosh here says, where the soul comes from. Shouldn't this be a great deterrent from sin? Person will think, how can I ever do this? How can I even think about speaking to certain people? I'm going to hear Lashon Hara, I'm going to hear bad things. They'll have, they might have bad influence on me. You got to return the soul as you got it. And the soul comes from the holiest place. How could you run it in the dirt? How could you waste time? You're not here very long. King David says in the book of Psalms, you're here for 70 years. If you have strength, 80 years. Anything over that's a bonus. You're not here very long. So the younger we are, we look at the clock, goes by very slow. You start to get older, the clock starts ticking very fast. Next thing you know, you get all this gray hair. You don't know how you became so old. Yeah, time goes by. What am I using the time for? How am I using it? We don't have that much time. We have limited time. And people have to work and they have to put food on the table. Very good. Right? So you have even less time to learn. Okay, but when a person's not working or whatever, you got to fulfill your obligation in this world. You want to return the soul as you got it. And that's going to save from a lot of heartache later. Like I've heard people say, come on, I'll worry about it when I get there. Yeah, I spoke about that yesterday. Because people don't think it's real. Think it's all make-believe. Oh, come on, yeah, you really think it's true, this and that. So you say, okay, here's a gun. Right, I mentioned this last night. Here's a gun. Right? Put one bullet in it, now pull the trigger. Oh, I never do that. 6 bullets. You got a 16.666% chance. You blow your brains out. Anyone willing to take the chance? For some people say, yeah, I'll take the chance. Like an 84.4% chance that I won't blow my brains out. Okay. Someone really going to take the chance? I don't think too many take the chance. Because they know. They're going to say, my luck, I'll be part of the 16%, blow my brains out. Yeah. I would say if the odds were more. Yeah. Yeah, even if, if it was, let's say, 10% chance. I don't think a lot of people would take the chance. Now, if there's, let's say, a 10% chance, or we'll say better, 16.6666% chance that what we're saying about what happens in the next world, the reward and punishment, and how punishment could happen, anyone really want to take the chance? So you say, but don't you always say, Rebbe always says, it's never been part of that world, been anyone in that world to come back. Okay, but we have a lot of information, punishment, and what happens in different things. So why would anyone want to take the chance? Well, they all worry about it when I get there. You're not going to play Russian roulette with a gun. Most people are not going to do that. Yeah. If you're not going to play Russian roulette with a gun, how could you play Russian roulette with the next world? And even if you would say, I heard someone say, what if you find out, after 120 years you were wrong? You just go 6 feet under. I said, well, I don't think that's the case. But even if it would be, let's say up to this point, everything we said, let's say, God forbid, wasn't true. Is there any better way to live your life in a moral way? I don't think there's any better way. Everything else is make-believe. Do what you want, feel like you want, whatever it is. But it means that we have to take responsibility for our actions. Now, we say at least if someone makes a mistake and they admit it in public, that's a good thing. At least they admit they made a mistake. Not that we're saying what they did is right. They know what they did was wrong. And a lot of people just, feel bad they got caught. Okay, but they don't feel bad what they did. So to admit you've done something wrong is huge. It's a huge thing. So if someone does something wrong, they admit it, good. I'm not saying what they did is right, but at least they admit what they did was wrong. That's why the Rambam says in the laws of repentance, the Rambam says on the Torah level, all I have to do is say Chatanu on Yom Kippur. All I have to do is say I've sinned. Oh, come on. You go through the Yom Kippur prayer book, there are hundreds of confessions to say. Don't say hundreds, whatever. A lot of confessions to say. Say it at night, say it in the morning, say it in the afternoon. A lot of confessions. Why go in the Rambam on a Torah level? All I have to do is say I've sinned. If I didn't say anything else, I fulfill my obligation. Why? What's the reason? Because it's very hard for a person to admit they did something wrong. See, when you say the person says, I've sinned in front of you, God, you hit your chest. You say, that I have sinned. Me, in front of you. Because it's very hard to admit we've done anything wrong. We're very good at making excuses. We're very good at having agendas. We're very good at saying they deserved to be spoken Lashon Hara against. Why they deserve it? Because look what they did here, look what they did there, blah, blah, blah. Even if it's true, and all, if all the conditions aren't met, you can't say it. You don't have a right to say it. Oh, but look what they did. Doesn't matter. Doesn't give you free reign, just open your mouth. We're very good at justifying what we do. We're ecstatic. Shouldn't say ecstatic, whatever. We're very good at what we do. Very easy to justify. Doesn't mean it's right by any stretch. Let me see. There are questions here. Somebody says, tells me from another life, that hurts the most because you don't know why you're being punished for. Most likely, I would say, most things in this world, there are some things, I would agree, probably getting punished because of what your soul has to go through. I would say 99% of everything else. Why is that? Because of sin. Of sin you've done in this world. Not what your soul has to go through. So that whatever your soul has to go through, okay. But that's not going to be the majority of things. Right? I wouldn't say it's a majority of things. Some things, yeah. I don't think it's a majority. Majority of things we go through in this world is because of what we've done. Not because of what, not because of what our soul has to go through. But again, that's neither here nor there, right? In other words, why would I say that? Because it doesn't matter what your soul has to go through. There are plenty of other things you'll go through because you did it. You did it to yourself, right? And there are repercussions of what we've done. Why wouldn't it be light? There was day and night before the sun and the moon. Very good. Very good. They didn't dominate, right? Each one got separated. God said there was day and there was night. Very good. The question is, what was the light source for the day? Yeah. You got the sun. You got day dominating, the day. They're not mixed together. And then whatever that light source is, then darkness comes. Very good. Right? But the question is, what's the element that makes the light? Isn't the sun a representative of light? Yes, but that wasn't the question. The question was, what's the light source for day one? Day 4, the sun is created. So you can tell me on day 4. The light source from day 4 onwards is the sun. True. That is true. What's the light source from day 1? Yeah, Torah doesn't say. God just says, let there be light. What light are we talking about? Rashi says the light that is siphoned off for the righteous in the world to come. Very good. So what was the light source in day one? So you're telling me that what step before the sun and the moon, for each one it dominates. So isn't the sun a representative of the light? It is. The sun is, but the sun wasn't great till day 4. So there had to be some source. There had to be some source of the light. Somebody says by getting rid of creations, could it also be make it harder for us? Could it be make it harder for us? I don't know. God can use something. God can always use something for to replace it. Yeah. Let's say something gets destroyed or something gets, used up. So God will use something else for that. Doesn't have to be necessarily harder. Well, let's say it is. Let's say it is harder. That means we did something to mess it up and God took it away. So if God took it away, it's because we messed it up. So why does he make it harder for us? Because of what we've done. You have to remember, a lot of things we do have repercussions, have unbelievable repercussions, right? In other words, it'd be very easy to say, well, this person did that, the other person did something else. It's not my fault. Okay. Well, we're not perfect, but we've mentioned many times there is collective punishment. Because there is collective punishment, so things happen because of what we do. Unless there's serious repentance or whatever. Right? So yeah, even if it's harder for us, why did God make it harder? Right? Let's ask the question, why did he make it harder? Because we blew it. That's why he made it harder. Did God want to send us in exile and almost destroy us by destruction of the temple? No. Why did God do that? Because we didn't listen. We didn't listen to the prophets. And the yelling and screaming, God's going to destroy the temple. No one thought that was going to happen. God's going to destroy his own building. It's still there. Now we're not worried. Right? We're not so worried. So we can make it harder for ourselves, and God's going to say, okay. We can do this the easy way, the hard way. So I'll give an example. The Messiah can come one of two ways. The Messiah can come, everyone's playing their guitar, singing Kumbaya, everything's good. Yeah, there's peace. Okay. There's another scenario. God can put up an evil king like Haman. All the Jewish people get scared, and who knows what's going on destruction-wise. And God brings the Messiah that way. Now, which way would God rather bring the Messiah for the Jewish people? The first way. Make it very easy. Extremely easy. No pain. Who wouldn't want to sign up for that? Everybody sign up for that. Everybody sign up for that. Oh, but you didn't do what you're supposed to do. Now the exile, gets longer and longer. There's more pain to give out. God doesn't want to have to do that, but he has to. You didn't listen to what he said. Right? It would be harder for us. True, but who made it harder for us? We ourselves made it harder for us. God didn't make it harder. These are the repercussions. You gotta say, but I didn't do it, and other people did it, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. The point is, God can say we can do it the easy way, the hard way. You choose. Of course, we want the easier way, but you're not upholding your end of the bargain. But we still want the easy way. That's not the way it works, right? Not the way it works. So we're our own worst enemy. We don't want to work hard. We want all the benefit. But we're in this world to toil. We're in this world to struggle. So part of the struggle is you do things wrong, there's payback. Now, again, there's repentance. God can take away the payback for repentance, okay. But you make a spiritual stench or a physical stench in this world, don't think, a person's going to get off scot-free. God does not want to make it harder for us. That's not what he wants. He wants us to do what he wants us to do to the best of our ability, to the highest level. Oh, you shirked the responsibility. You didn't do what you were supposed to do. It's payback. Could be serious payback. See, but again, as we said before, we don't always understand, or many times we don't understand the measure for measure and how it works out. What happened on October 7th, we have no idea. It was a divine decree. That divine decree was made on Rosh Hashanah before. We don't understand why, but God put all these people together, and that's what was supposed to happen. Again, in God's eyes, it's very clear. In our eyes, very hard to understand. Very, very hard to understand. But he's the one in charge. He's the one calling the shots. Now, did God want to have to do that? No. Come on, every person that dies in such a way, especially a Jew, doesn't want to do that. What happened in the Holocaust? How people were killed and butchered and tortured and all that. You don't want to do that. He gave no choice. Right? We don't know why. We don't know why. But God made it in such a way that, it was painful. It's got to be painful for him also. I mean, to the extent where, the angels want to sing praises to God when the Egyptians are drowning. Look what the Egyptians did to the Jewish people. And God says, as the Gemara says, how can you sing my praises? My handiwork is drowning. Well, didn't they deserve to drown? Didn't they deserve to be punished? They deserve to be punished. But God still feels the pain. He still feels the pain because there is handiwork. Right? Created in his image. Doesn't have to do that. But if they go against what he says and, in a nasty way, there's payback. Okay. He doesn't want to have to do that, but there's payback. See, we don't look at it that way. We say, good, they deserved it. Right? So the whole question, what was before in the Q&A, is the whole question, are we allowed to be happy at the downfall of our enemies? Difference of opinion. There's a difference of opinion. See, God can be upset and be happy at the same time. We can't do that. Yeah, let me see other questions here. The recent Amsterdam attacks, it's like celebrating when any Jewish people are celebrating, enjoying themselves. And someone put up a post, kind of annoying, but I saw the post a number of places. I commented once. The person said, well, this is a wake-up call. I mean, all of Europe is a powder keg, right? I think we all understand that. So I didn't say that, but when I wrote, what my answer was is in October 7th wasn't. And everything that happened after October 7th was not a wake-up call. This is the only wake-up call. What's going on in college campuses for the last year, not a wake-up call. I understand what they meant, but you got to be careful what you say. Oh, this is a big wake-up call. Really? Yeah, the biggest pogrom since the Holocaust that happened last October 7th, year ago. That wasn't a wake-up call. That wasn't a greater wake-up call. They say, okay, they're hunting down Jews in Amsterdam. It's a horrific thing. The prime minister says we didn't even get we didn't even get the culprit yet. And pretty pathetic. The police didn't do anything. Okay. Europe is drenched in Jewish blood. No question about it. No question about it. Yeah, it is kind of shocking. It's kind of shocking. You don't expect something like this to happen. I mean, the world environment's not surprising. But there's nothing else. There's nothing else in the last year. That's a wake-up call? Really? It's got to be short-sighted. You had on one day more people killed since the Holocaust. That was a wake-up call. That was a humongous wake-up call. Yeah, the whole year has been a big wake-up call. Mm-hmm. And to see what this, previous administration that's going out would withhold arms, that Israel can't defend itself or have difficulty defending itself. It's also a wake-up call. Sure. But what happened in the past year has been a huge wake-up call. This is part of it. This is part of it. So that happens in the U.S., everywhere else, right? Right? So someone here mentions it's harder on Israel because of natural borders. Harder on Israel because it's a double standard, right? People have to understand, Israel's been taking a task for a war they didn't start, a massacre they didn't start, and trying to protect their citizens. Now, aren't innocent people going to get killed? Yeah. Anyone say anything, to America when they went into Iraq, killed tens of thousands? Nobody said anything. No protests, burning American flag, nothing. Israel's held to a double standard because the media keeps saying the same stupid thing. 40,000 people have been killed, women and children. Totally not true. Totally not true. And even if it would be, even if the numbers, let's say, were 10,000, let's say, not even close, but let's say, they're using them as human shields. What are you supposed to do? What in the world are you supposed to do? They try to get them out. They try to tell them to leave. And they're using them as human shields. Seeing Hezbollah is doing the same thing. This is war. You started it. We won. You say, don't you have any, don't you feel bad? Of course I feel bad. Innocent lives should be spared. But you know what? They're not innocent. I mentioned this last night. I spoke about Amalek. All these people have been indoctrinated by Hamas. This generation, next generation, future generations, they're all indoctrinated. How do you stop that? There's no possible way to stop it. You're not going to rehabilitate them, which the Western world doesn't understand. You're not going to rehabilitate them. You're not going to change them. They've poisoned their own people. Poisoned their own people. There's nobody innocent there. Nobody innocent. People don't get them. People don't get it. Okay. Well, we're held to a different standard. We're held to a totally different standard, which at face value makes absolutely no sense. Everyone else gets a pass over here, except us. Now, some people might get condemned or whatever, but not usually. You got to understand, Israel's 1/1000 of the world's population, probably less. They've been condemned more in the UN than anyone else combined. A lot of rogue countries in the UN. A lot. You want to tell me Israel's the only friend America has in the Middle East? Only real true friend? They get condemned more than anyone else? Man, I'm not going to get into politics there. It's insane. It makes absolutely no sense. It's a huge double standard. Huge. And they keep perpetuating the same lies. Genocide. If you use human shields, and they keep saying this, public opinion doesn't really care. Nobody seems to care what the facts are. Why don't they fact check this? Nobody cares. Mind-boggling. They have a right, to defend themselves and blah, blah, blah. They're using human shields. What do you want? Even all this money the UN RWA got, they had people that are part of Hamas as part of that group. So the UN's going ape that, Israel wants it to fund them and they shouldn't get any money and whatever. Yeah, Trump's going to go in and wipe them out. Hopefully. You have nothing. These maggots were part of it. Celebrated with Hamas themselves. They deserve billions of dollars? Really? I mean, you can ask so many questions. All these, all these organizations, that are for human rights. Well, where's everyone screaming that, hostages, you should let these organizations go in and check out see how the hostages are. Anyone saying anything? No. What about the women's groups out there? All these women have been raped. Anyone come out against? Mind-boggling. Mind-boggling. What does that mean? Nobody cares. Jews are just left to die and be slaughtered. The only being you can rely on is Avinu Shebashamayim, is our Father in heaven. And that is the lesson we should have learned from the Holocaust. Okay, you got to put your best foot forward and it's good. America's helping and they're sending things or whatever. Good. But God runs the world. He's the one in charge. Could have been made a lot worse if, she would have got into power. She would have stopped money coming to Israel. Defend themselves. Anti-Semite, no question about it. No question about it. You can say whatever you want about Trump. They're anti-Semites. There's nothing to talk about. There's nothing to talk about. And it's still on the table that, if Israel doesn't give so much aid, right, they're going to cut down arms, right? The next, they got, I don't know, 25 days, 20 days. After obviously, Trump probably overthrow that. They're giving all this aid and Hamas is taking it. What do you want? And what do you want? I mean, you can't even make this stuff up. It's so ludicrous. But it just goes to show. It just goes to show you can't rely on anybody. You're not relying on anybody except God himself. And we're in God's hands. Yeah, we need a lot of rachamim, a lot of compassion here. Israel fight on 3 fronts. Not simple. You got Hezbollah, you got Hamas, and you got Iran. Hezbollah is a much more stronger fighters than, certainly than Hamas, but, they still got tons of missiles. And Iran's helping them. Thank God Obama gave Iran back all this money. What do you think they used it for? It's insanity. Absolute insanity. But see, the Jews in history go against all odds. All odds. The fact that once the Jewish state was acknowledged, what was the first thing the Arabs did? They attacked. There's no reason Jewish state should even be in existence with all the wars and everything else, except for the fact that God's protected them. Get all these nations want to destroy them. What would stop them? I hope there are no Arabs listening to this, right? What would stop all these nations, around Israel, not far? Just take all their armies. Yeah, just take tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people just march in Israel. They can't stop all of them. It's like playing one of those last levels of, any video game. Like they're coming like 10, they're coming very fast. I'm like, you can't get everybody, right? It's impossible to get everybody. What's stopping them? God's stopping them. Oh, we got nuclear weapons. Very good. Yeah. Maybe that's a good deterrent. I don't know. But I'm just saying, sheer numbers. Sheer numbers. They say, okay, warfare is different today, this, that, okay. But we're outnumbered on all sides. You got all these nations just want to rip Israel to shreds. Not to mention, you got 3 million Arabs within Israel that want to rip Israel to shreds also. What would stop them from, just trying to go through all the borders and whatever on all sides? They don't care about lives. What would stop them? The only thing stopping them is God. So the power of learning Torah here. That's it. But nothing else stopping them practically. Thorny mentions, it's like David and Goliath. It's not even like that. It's not even close. Take David and make him into a midget. Make him, even smaller. The odds are totally stacked against them. Totally stacked. The fact that God's watching over them is a miracle. There's no question. That's the power of Torah learning. Otherwise, it wouldn't make any sense. Would not make any sense how Israel survives. During the 6-day war, they were running out of ammunition. America didn't want to give. Of course, who was Secretary of State at the same time? Kissinger, self-hating Jew that he was. They didn't want to give. You know what happens? You don't have bullets to fight back. They're in trouble. I mean, they should find another way to get ammunition. So they're not rely on anybody, but they're relying on America, sure. Can't be held, 2 hands behind their back over here. Because at least some people understand if they don't take care of this, the whole world's in trouble. You got Arabs everywhere in the world. Everywhere in the world. Ready to pounce. Small minorities, all over Europe. Yeah, big problem. Huge problem. So you think, everyone should be thankful, we're doing the job or trying to do the job, right? Otherwise, this is going to start everywhere. This is not just a Middle Eastern thing. They're there to take over the world. No question about it. They don't care. They don't care how many of their people die and how many other people die. They don't care. Right? They have no value for life. None. Except the fact they want to kill Jews. So they're going to start with Jews first. right? We get all the luck. Yeah, they're going to start with us first. Okay. But some people actually get it. They say if you don't stop it here, you don't nip it in the bud, it's going to be all over the world. But we're held to such, we're held to such a different standards, mind-boggling. It makes sense logically. In fact, no big fan of the UN, but the fact that condemned Israel more than anyone else, and we're like such a tiny population. We're no bigger than the state of size in New Jersey. It's mind-boggling. Absolutely mind-boggling. The way it's all gone down. But yeah, logically speaking, shouldn't be here. So yeah, we need a lot of prayers. But again, it's not just here. It's all over. It's all over the world. Amsterdam's just a microcosm. Everything going on in college campuses, other places, just a microcosm. They want Israel's destruction. They make no bones about it. Even these punks on college campuses, yeah. These thugs, I would call them, from the river to the sea. That means genocide. Right? They don't know which river, which sea, but okay. Yeah, that means utter destruction. Oh, that's not racism, really? Say about the Chinese, people be up in arms. Say about the blacks, about the Puerto Ricans, come on. Oh, it depends on the context. Say that against any other nationality. They'd be burning down your cities. No question about it. That's well beyond. We got to take someone who's got like maybe close to a 200 IQ or 150 IQ, whatever it is. Someone so brilliant, that's what they come up with. Depends on the context. What do we deserve then? We should be blown out of the water, destroyed. What's the answer? Sin. That's the fear. That's absolutely the fear. Because we don't, like my Rebbe would say, I'm not worried. I'm not worried about, what goes on in Iran, these other places. I'm more worried about people in Israel that sin. And that Jews that sin. And I'm worried about when government officials say it's the power of my hands that are doing this. That's the greatest danger. That puts Israel in danger. Because they're taking God out of the picture. When you take God out of the picture, what happens? God gets ticked off. You say he's not in charge, doesn't run the world. It's the power of my hands and my guns. Well, God's going to say, really? Maybe I'll take them away. Maybe I'll take some of them away. Then you're really going to pray hard. Because then you don't have enough weapons. Then what's going to be? Rebbe says that's the biggest fear. Because these people, animals we'll call them, these animals only have power as much as God wants to give them power. But he could use them like a stick to make us be afraid, right? To be on our knees and praying because we have no one else to pray to. We have no one else going to help us. Yeah, nobody. It's good people want to join in and whatever, but like, more than that. Can't rely on them. Imagine, America brings troops over here or whatever. Some people start getting killed. They don't want to be another Vietnam, another thing. They don't want that. It says the Malbim, they're helping Israel. They're going to say the whole problem is Israel. They're going to, join against the fight, and that's when the Messiah is going to come. We'll see what happens. Yeah, but, bottom line, it's a very scary situation. Extremely scary situation. But when you come out and you say it's all because of what I do and it's my might and my strength, God ain't going to take a back seat here. That's kind of offensive. God's like, I'm keeping everything together. I'm protecting you. And the Torah learning is protecting you. Well, you know what? Maybe I'll look the other way a little bit. Maybe you'll get the message another way. That's the danger. That is the real danger. Another danger is even if a person witnesses a miracle and they say it's an open miracle, let's say it is. If they say it's an open miracle, but it doesn't change them, that's even worse. First of all, you're acknowledging God's the one in charge. God's doing an open miracle. But if it didn't change you the way you think, the way you pray, the way you make blessings, the way you do other things, if it didn't change you, God's going to say, what do I waste my time here for? What did I do this for? I saved you. I made sure they didn't hurt you. I did all these things in the background, and this is what you do? You don't even thank me? You don't even pray better? You haven't even changed? Okay, we give a lot of reasons why. But see, if we were all playing God here, I gotta say, come on, you gotta be better than that. The whole year goes by, you didn't change. You didn't think about what it meant, how these people were savagely murdered, brutalized. It didn't change you. Mind-boggling. If anyone didn't change, that's even worse. That's even worse. Is God saying you didn't get the message? Well, maybe you have to make it stronger. May have to put you on your knees to realize this is what it has to be. That's the only way you're going to recognize it. We said it could come in one or two ways. The Messiah can come in a good way, right? Peace and all that, and the Messiah can come in a nasty way. Come out of fear. Come out of, God forbid, terrible things. Shouldn't come to that. But God says, you don't get the message one way, okay, so I have to get you the message the other way. And says the Medrash says, if there's going to be war Gog and Magog, which pretty much many commentaries hold that there will be, it's going to start with the king of Paras. Where's Paras? Paras is in Iran. So it could be, this is exactly what it's supposed to be. And this is how it's supposed to be, and this is how it's supposed to go down. How it's going to end? Anybody's guess. Anybody's guess. But what is the what's the trial? What's the trial in all this? The trial in all this is emunah. It's working on our emunah and our faith. That's what it is. But see, God's using Iran to get to us. That's what he's doing. So if we do what we're supposed to do, we have divine protection. If we don't do what we're supposed to do, God should have mercy on all of us. But see, it's just not an isolated thing. It's not just about the Jews here. Just so happens it started here. Yeah, but this is a microcosm for everywhere in the world. That's what they want. So you can say, very good. Let's get it down. Let's go. Bring the Messiah. Okay. Hopefully we survive. But that's the test. The test is the emunah. I said, and I was, was dead wrong. But I said, come on, Israel, after everything that happened, Israel should have at least a few weeks, a month, few months, even when they go attack and they go into Gaza, that the whole world's not going to jump up and down. Wasn't even that. Any other nation would go in and just started killing people left and right. No one said anything. It's a double standard, right? But again, we're held to a different standard. To a totally different standard. And again, very easily we could say, well, what's the purpose here? And the purpose is we got to get our heads out of the sand. We got to be better. And we got to say that God's the one in charge and not anyone else. And it's not the power of our might, the power of our guns and all that. We have to get that message. If we don't get that message, God's just going to put us on our knees. And say, okay, you don't get the message, you're going to pray more. You're going to pray harder because I'm going to squeeze you like no tomorrow. But hopefully it doesn't come to that. Hopefully we do get the message. But see, we're stiff-necked people, so we forget. We forget things very quickly. Yeah. Any other questions? All right, I'm going to stop here. I do this every Sunday, 9:00 Eastern time, 4:00 Israel time. Anyone has any questions, find me on Facebook at Michael Chaim Kaufman, Beyond Orthodox Conversion Judaism, orthodoxconversion.com, or Beyond Orthodox Conversion Judaism on YouTube. There I got videos on Q&As. Ethics of Our Fathers, Book of Leviticus. You want to send me an email, rabbichaimkaufman@gmail.com, RBBICHAIMCOFFMAN @gmail.com. Wish everyone a good beginning of the day, middle of the day,